Zara Brooks stumbled backward, her heart pounding as the words tore from her throat before she fully realized them. "Oh Lord, someone's baby's under the ground." The metal watering can slipped from her trembling hands, clanging against the patio tiles of the Hamilton estate. She dropped to her knees, plunging her hands into the freshly turned soil beneath the rose garden. The dirt was soft, suspiciously soft, as if it had been disturbed moments ago. Her fingers brushed something cold and small, human, a tiny hand. "No, no, no, Lucas!" she gasped, clawing frantically at the soil. As she uncovered the boy's tiny blue pajama top, tears blurred her vision. She scooped him up with all her strength, feeling his fragile body convulse in pain. "Ah, it hurts," Lucas whimpered, his voice hoarse from being buried. "I'm so sorry, baby, I'm so sorry," Zara sobbed, cradling him tightly. Dirt fell over her arms and legs as she tried to calm him, her chest heaving. "Help! Somebody help!" she screamed, panic slicing through her. Heavy footsteps echoed across the patio. Victor Hamilton, one of New York's wealthiest men, came running, his usual composed mask shattered. His eyes were wide with fury. "What have you done?" he roared. Zara's voice trembled as she tried to explain. "Sir, I found him buried under the roses. I didn't hurt him." Victor lunged forward, snatching Lucas from her arms. The boy cried out in sudden pain, tiny fingers clawing at the air. "No, please, sir. He was buried. I saved him," Zara cried, desperation lacing her words. She stumbled backward, heart racing, realizing that the fight to prove the truth had only just begun. Victor Hamilton's face twisted with a storm of rage and disbelief as he clutched Lucas tightly. "You buried my son alive?" he bellowed, his voice shaking with a mix of grief and fury. Zara flinched as his hand lashed out, striking her cheek. Pain exploded across her face, but she forced herself to stay on her knees in the garden soil. "No, sir, I didn't. I found him buried. I saved him," she pleaded, her voice trembling. Lucas whimpered weakly in Victor's arms, his tiny fingers clinging to his father. Dirt smudged Zara's uniform and hands, but she didn't care. Her sole focus was saving the child and proving her innocence. Before Victor could respond, a soft, controlled voice drifted from the terrace above. Vivienne Chase, Victor's fiancée, appeared, immaculate in silk and perfectly coiffed hair, her hand resting lightly on the marble railing. "Oh my God, Zara, how could you?" Vivienne's voice was sweet, yet laced with venom. Her eyes glimmered with false shock as she glanced at Lucas in Victor's arms. "He's just a child," Zara whispered, desperation choking her words. "I didn't hurt him. I heard him crying. I saved him." Vivienne's lips curved faintly, masking her contempt. "Saved him? Alone with him? You've been acting strange for weeks," she said, her tone that of someone revealing a damning truth. From the doorway, a housemaid chimed in, nodding toward Zara. "I saw her talking to herself again this morning," she said. Another voice followed. "She's obsessed with those kids. Something's not right." Zara's heart sank. She opened her mouth to protest, but the whispers and accusatory stares cut deeper than any slap. Around her, the garden felt suffocating, the air thick with suspicion, as though every breath she took was being judged. Zara Brooks pressed her hands to her face, trembling as the weight of the accusations crushed her. "That's not true. I would never hurt Lucas," she shouted, but her voice sounded fragile against the chorus of suspicion. One of the housemaids muttered, "Monster," while another hissed, "Child killer." A cold wave of panic surged through Zara. The roses around her, once vibrant, now felt like thorns of judgment piercing her soul. Victor's eyes blazed with fury. "If anything happens to him," his voice cracked with emotion, blending rage and fear, "your life won't matter a thing." He took a step forward, and Zara instinctively staggered back, slipping slightly on the loose soil. Pain shot through her arms and legs, but she forced herself upright, clutching the dirt-streaked uniform. "Sir, please, just listen. He was buried when I found him," she pleaded, desperation lacing every word. Vivienne Chase stepped forward, her silk robe gliding over the garden tiles, shadowing Zara like an eclipse. "Victor, don't listen. She's trying to manipulate you," Vivienne cooed, eyes glinting with calculated innocence. "Women like her know how to beg. It's all she does best." Zara's chest tightened, humiliation mingling with fear. The whispers, the accusing stares, the venom in Vivienne's tone, it all became a heavy cage. "I swear on my life. I heard him cry. I saved him," she gasped. But Vivienne shook her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Delusional," she said softly, as if declaring Zara's guilt for the world to see. The rose garden, once a place of beauty, had become a battlefield of lies, secrets, and broken trust, and Zara felt utterly alone. Victor Hamilton's jaw tightened as he stepped closer, the air around him crackling with raw anger. "You're fired. Do not ever set foot in this house again," he snapped, each word sharp as a blade. Zara's knees buckled, and she dropped to the ground, the soil clinging to her torn uniform. "No, sir, please," she cried, her voice breaking. "I didn't hurt him. I saved Lucas. Please, don't do this." Pain from the bruises on her arms and the scratch marks across her back burned as she forced herself to stand. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. "Sir, I can't. I can't lose this job. I'm all he has," she whispered, tears mingling with dirt on her cheeks. Her hands shook as she reached toward Victor, but he didn't flinch. His eyes, normally composed, blazed with grief and fury that threatened to crush her. Vivienne Chase glided toward them, her shadow falling over Zara like a dark curtain. "Victor, don't listen to her manipulations," Vivienne said, her voice smooth, almost soothing, but dripping with venom. "She's playing you. Can't you see it?" Zara felt herself shrink under the weight of Vivienne's words. Every lie sounded sweeter, every accusation sharper. Zara bowed her head, clenching her hands together, tears falling into the freshly turned soil beneath her. "I swear on my life, I didn't hurt him," she sobbed, desperation raw in every word. Victor exhaled harshly, his decision final. "Get off my property, Zara, now." Alone, humiliated and covered in dirt, Zara Brooks realized the fight to prove the truth would be harder than she ever imagined. The Rose Garden, once her sanctuary, had become a battlefield where lies triumphed over innocence. Zara Brooks sank onto the cold marble steps of the Hamilton estate, the weight of helplessness pressing down on her. The scent of freshly turned soil lingered in the air, mingling with the crushed roses, a bitter reminder of her desperate act to save Lucas. She pressed her hands against her scraped arms, the stinging pain barely registering compared to the ache in her chest. She had saved the boy, yet the world treated her as the villain. Voices from the house echoed behind her. Vivienne Chase's sweet, venomous tones floated through the open doors. "Detective Zara has always been unstable. She talks to herself, stares at the children's photos at night. I was afraid she might hurt someone," Vivienne said, her words dripping with calculated malice. Zara clenched her teeth, fighting back tears, fury, and disbelief. She had given everything to these children, and now her loyalty was being twisted into a crime. Hours passed. Zara replayed every moment, the scream, the dirt, Victor's blow, Vivienne's insidious smile. The night crept over the estate like a shadow, heavier than any darkness she had felt. Somewhere inside, she refused to let despair fully take her. She had saved Lucas. She knew the truth. Yet the world seemed intent on burying her reputation alongside the boy she had rescued. As she sat alone, The marble cold beneath her, Zara whispered into the night, "Lord, if you put me here for a reason, don't let me run, not this time." Her voice trembled but carried determination. Someone had tried to silence the truth, but she wouldn't let it stay buried. Somewhere, Victor and Vivienne believed they held all the power, but Zara Brooks wasn't finished fighting yet. As Zara Brooks sat on the cold marble steps, a small shadow appeared in the doorway. Lila, Victor's youngest, peeked cautiously around the frame, her big brown eyes wide with fear. "Miss Zara," she whispered, clutching a worn teddy bear. Zara forced a soft smile, her heart aching at the sight of the frightened girl. "Hey, sweetie, it's okay," she said gently, brushing a loose curl from Lila's face. Lila hesitated, her voice barely audible. "Dad said, you hurt Lucas." The words struck Zara like icy knives. She swallowed hard, shaking her head. "No, honey, that's not true. I would never hurt him," she reassured her, kneeling to meet the girl's gaze. Lila twisted the teddy bear's ear nervously. "Vivienne told me not to talk to you. She said, Mommy's ghost is angry because you're bad luck." Zara froze. "Mommy's ghost?" she asked, her voice trembling. Lila nodded solemnly. "She sees everything. She's watching." A shiver ran down Zara's spine. Vivienne's manipulation had seeped into the youngest heart of the household. Yet in Lila's hesitant tone, there was a flicker of trust. "I believe you," she whispered. Zara's chest tightened as she pulled Lila into a gentle hug. Tears threatened to spill, but she held them back. In that small, fragile moment, she found a thread of hope. Someone in the house still knew the truth, even if the adults were blinded by lies. Zara realized that saving Lucas was only the beginning. Protecting the children from Vivienne's insidious control would take every ounce of courage she had left. Zara Brooks wiped the tears from her face and stood, her legs shaky but her resolve hardening like steel. The cold marble beneath her feet and the weight of the night's events reminded her of the truth she had unearthed, and the danger that lurked behind Vivienne Chase's carefully constructed lies. Every whisper in the house, every accusing glance, only fueled her determination. She couldn't let Lucas or Lila be pawns in Vivienne's game. Inside, the mansion was eerily quiet. The children were safe for now, but Zara knew it was temporary. Vivienne's manipulation had already seeped into every corner, and Victor's grief made him blind to the facts. She needed proof. Proof that Lucas had been buried alive. Proof that she had saved him. And evidence that Vivienne was orchestrating the false narrative. Each plan she formulated in her mind was precise, calculated, born from desperation and unwavering loyalty. Zara clenched her fists. The rose garden, marred by trampled petals and loose soil, stood as a silent witness to her bravery. No one had seen the truth except her, and now Lila, the youngest, innocent yet perceptive. Zara whispered under her breath, "I'll show them. I'll make them see." Every breath was heavy with purpose. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the children, for their safety, and for the life she had risked to save Lucas. As dawn's first light touched the estate, Zara took a deep breath, wiping the dirt from her hands. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Vivienne's web of lies had yet to be unraveled, and Zara Brooks was ready to tear it apart, piece by piece, until the truth could no longer be ignored. Zara Brooks moved silently through the quiet corridors of the Hamilton mansion, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. Every creak of the polished floorboards echoed like a warning. Vivienne Chase had eyes everywhere. The fiancé's perfection masked a dangerous cunning, and Zara knew she couldn't act recklessly. She had to be strategic. Her first step was the rose garden. The disturbed soil, still soft from Lucas's near burial, held traces of evidence. Zara took careful notes, photographing the area with her phone. Each footprint, each smear of dirt, was a breadcrumb leading to the truth. If she could document this, show Victor and the authorities the reality, Vivienne's lies would begin to crumble. But evidence wasn't enough. Zara needed to understand Vivienne's methods. She recalled the whispered conversations, the manipulations that had seeped even into Lila's innocent mind. Every glance, every word, Vivienne had used them to twist perception. Zara vowed to protect the children from the fiancé's deceit, to be the shield they desperately needed. As she crouched behind a bush near the garden, observing Vivienne sipping morning coffee on the terrace, Zara's resolve hardened. Vivienne's serene smile was a mask, one that concealed a calculating heart. Zara whispered to herself, determination threading her voice. I will prove the truth. I will protect Lucas. I will not let her win. The mansion, grand and imposing, suddenly felt like a battlefield, and Zara Brooks was ready to fight. Zara Brooks watched from the shadowed corner of the hallway, her heart thudding as Vivienne Chase moved gracefully through the mansion. Each step was deliberate, each word carefully chosen to charm or intimidate. The staff, usually composed and professional, fell silent or nodded at her subtle suggestions. Zara clenched her fists, furious and helpless as Vivienne whispered, smiled, and commanded, bending reality to her will. A housemaid hesitated near the kitchen, then quietly admitted, Yes, Vivienne, I saw her talking to the boy alone this morning. Vivienne's lips curved in approval, and Zara's stomach turned. Every lie Vivienne planted, every false impression, was another nail in Zara's coffin if she wasn't careful. Lucas's near tragedy had become a stage, and Vivienne the director of deceit, controlling every actor. Zara's mind raced. She had evidence of Lucas's burial, but unless Victor saw Vivienne's manipulation firsthand, he would continue to doubt her. And the children, sweet Lila and fragile Lucas, were living in a web of fear and confusion. Their trust in her was a fragile thread, and Vivienne was determined to snap it. Zara whispered under her breath, determination blazing, I will expose her. I'll show Victor the truth. They won't see me as the villain any longer. The mansion's grandeur seemed to mock her, but Zara Brooks refused to be intimidated. Every silent step, every careful plan was a strike against Vivienne's cruelty. The fight was far from over, and Zara knew the next move would be crucial. Zara Brooks took a deep breath as she approached Victor Hamilton's study, her palms still smudged with dirt from the rose garden. The polished floors gleamed under the morning light, but they didn't soothe her racing heart. Victor sat behind his massive desk, eyes still clouded with anger and grief, the weight of Lucas's near tragedy pressing down on him like a vice. Sir, Zara began cautiously, her voice firm despite the tremor she felt inside. I gathered some proof from the garden, the soil, the footprints. I documented everything. Lucas was buried alive, and I saved him. She held out her phone, images of disturbed earth and muddied petals pressed between trembling fingers. Victor's gaze flicked to the images, then away, conflicted emotions crossing his face. I don't know what to believe, he admitted, his voice heavy with frustration. Zara stepped closer, desperate. Please, look at the evidence. Vivienne, she's manipulating everyone. You have to see the truth. Victor's jaw tightened. She's my fiancée. I want to believe her, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. Zara's heart sank, but she refused to relent. Sir, if you truly love your children, you'll see the signs. Don't let lies destroy them, or me. I risked everything to save Lucas. Victor's eyes met hers, stormy yet uncertain. Zara realized this confrontation was only the first step. Convincing him would take courage, patience, and undeniable proof, but she was determined. The fight for the truth and for Lucas was far from over. Victor Hamilton sat back in his chair, fingers drumming against the polished wood. The images Zara Brooks had shown him lingered in his mind, clashing with the carefully crafted narrative Vivienne Chase had fed him. Every polished word, every perfectly timed accusation now seemed to fray at the edges. Doubt, sharp and unwelcome, began to creep in. Zara watched him closely, sensing the subtle shift. She had expected resistance, but even a flicker of uncertainty was a foothold. "Sir," she said softly, stepping closer, "I know it's hard to believe, but everything I've told you is true. Vivienne, she's manipulating the staff, even Lila and Lucas. She wants you to distrust me, to turn your grief into weapons against me." Victor rubbed his eyes, his chest tight with the storm of emotions. Anger, guilt, confusion. I trusted her," he murmured, voice low. "I wanted to trust her." Zara's voice steadied with conviction. "And you should, but not at the cost of the children's safety. You need to see beyond appearances." Victor's gaze dropped to the photos again, noticing the subtle marks in the soil, the scuffs in the garden. Each detail contradicted Vivienne's story. Could she really? His words trailed off, heavy with disbelief. Zara felt hope surge. This was the moment to guide him, to peel away Vivienne's mask and expose the truth before more damage could be done. The mansion, once a fortress of lies, now trembled with the possibility of revelation. Zara Brooks moved cautiously through the mansion, her eyes scanning every corner for anything that could prove Vivienne Chase's duplicity. She knew Vivienne was meticulous, leaving no obvious traces of her manipulations. Yet in the quiet of the study, Zara noticed a slightly ajar drawer, the faint glint of papers peeking out. Heart pounding, she slipped inside and carefully pulled out a folder. Inside were notes, schedules, and whispered accounts from staff, carefully twisted to implicate Zara. Each page painted her as unstable, obsessed with Lucas and Lila, and dangerously unpredictable. Her stomach churned. Vivienne hadn't just lied, she had orchestrated an entire narrative to frame her, ensuring Victor's trust would remain blind. Zara's fingers tightened around the folder. Proof. Real proof that could finally show Victor the truth. She exhaled slowly, forcing herself to focus. If Victor saw these documents alongside the evidence from the garden, he couldn't deny what had happened. The sound of footsteps froze her. Vivienne's voice floated from the hallway, smooth and dangerously calm. "Looking for something, Zara?" she purred. Zara's heart raced, but she held her ground, clutching the folder to her chest. "Yes, I'm looking for the truth," she said, her voice steady despite the fear. Vivienne's smile tightened, eyes narrowing. The game was far from over, but for the first time, Zara felt the tide might be turning in her favor. Zara Brooks stood in the grand hallway, folder clutched tightly against her chest, as Vivienne Chase's eyes narrowed. The fiancé's perfectly composed facade flickered for the first time with a hint of unease. "You shouldn't be here," Vivienne said smoothly, her voice a dangerous whisper. "This doesn't concern you." "It concerns everyone you've been deceiving," Zara shot back, stepping closer, courage blazing despite her racing heart. She opened the folder, letting the pages spill out between them. "These are your lies, schedules, staff reports, twisted accounts, all fabricated to make me the villain. Victor needs to see this." Vivienne's lips pressed into a tight line, and her calm demeanor faltered. "You think this changes anything?" Vivienne hissed, advancing, but Zara didn't flinch. "It does," she said firmly. "The truth always finds a way." She heard the faint shuffle of Victor approaching, drawn by the tension in the air. For the first time, Vivienne's mask cracked fully. Fear flashed in her eyes, and her control over the household's narrative felt fragile. Victor arrived just as Zara held the folder open, revealing undeniable evidence of Vivienne's manipulations. His eyes widened, disbelief and realization colliding. Vivienne's perfectly crafted lies, meant to sway him entirely, were unraveling in front of him. Zara felt a spark of hope. The mansion, heavy with secrets for so long, now trembled with the possibility of truth finally prevailing. Victor Hamilton's hands shook as he held the folder Zara Brooks had presented. The evidence was irrefutable. Schedules, notes, and fabricated reports all laid bare Vivienne Chase's manipulations. He turned to her, eyes hard, voice trembling with a mix of anger and betrayal. "Vivienne, is this true?" he demanded, the calm of his usual demeanor replaced by disbelief. Vivienne's face paled, her smooth veneer cracking. "Victor, you don't understand," she began, but the words faltered under the weight of her own deception. Victor shook his head, his eyes narrowing. "No, I trusted you. I wanted to believe you, but this changes everything." Zara watched silently, her chest tight with relief, knowing she had finally pierced the veil of lies that had ensnared the mansion. Lucas and Lila peeked from the staircase, sensing the tension. Victor's gaze softened, and he knelt, pulling Lucas into a protective embrace. I'm so sorry," he whispered, tears glinting in his eyes. Zara felt a surge of hope. The children were safe, and the truth was finally beginning to shine through the shadows Vivienne had cast. Vivienne backed away, realizing her grip on the family was slipping. Victor stood tall, decisively turning his attention to Zara. "You saved him," he said, his voice steady now, edged with gratitude and awe. "And I doubted you. I'm sorry." Zara swallowed hard, fighting back tears. The mansion, once heavy with deceit and fear, now felt lighter, as if the air itself had been cleared. The battle for truth was almost over, and for the first time, Zara felt a sense of vindication and hope. Vivienne Chase stood in the center of the grand hallway, her perfectly composed mask shattered. The staff, once intimidated, now whispered among themselves, emboldened by Zara Brooks's unwavering courage and Victor Hamilton's newfound clarity. Victor's eyes, clear and resolute, bore into Vivienne's. "You lied to me, manipulated my family, and endangered my son. That ends now," he declared, his voice echoing through the mansion. Lucas clung to Victor, safe and reassured, while Lila's small hand found Zara's, a silent thank you for protecting them. The mansion, once heavy with fear and secrecy, now seemed to breathe, light spilling into spaces that had been darkened by deceit. Vivienne's attempts to control had failed. Her carefully woven web of lies lay in tatters, exposed by evidence, courage, and unwavering truth. Victor turned fully to Zara, gratitude and admiration in his eyes. "You didn't just save Lucas, you saved us all," he said, his voice steady. Zara felt a wave of relief, exhaustion, and pride. The children were safe, the lies exposed, and justice finally within reach. As Vivienne was escorted from the estate, the household slowly began to heal. Trust returned, laughter tentatively filled the hallways, and the scars of manipulation began to fade. Zara looked out at the rose garden, now tranquil, reflecting on the trials she had faced. She had risked everything, yet the truth had prevailed. With a deep breath, she whispered to herself, "No more lies, no more fear. We begin again." The Hamilton family, once fractured, now stood united, stronger and wiser, with Zara as their unwavering guardian.